What is going on? I want to welcome you from Half Court for today. I am Sean Murphy, and today is an episode I was looking forward to because I am joined by a dear friend of mine who does amazing draft coverage. He's been our resident draft expert here at From Half Court for going on. This is the third draft now. I think you've been our draft guy, Steve. So it's so good to have my guy back on. It is, of course, Steve. Had to do a longer one because it's been a while. Steve, my good man, my friend, how are you doing? It is good to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time and coming on the show.
Yeah, of course. I can't miss it. We always got to talk Pistons when it comes to the draft. It's pretty much our best avenue for getting like major talent. Ain't no Piston fan celebrating free agency. Free agency, if anything, has burned us more often than not. Depending on who the GM is, like trades can be hit or miss, but the draft has always been like the consistent hope of where, hey, we can get our kid Cunningham, we can get our SARs, all these guys that have really helped us turn a corner. So excited to be here in the middle of draft season. Again, I'm from the Rezball pod. I host that every week. Right now, we're dropping episodes daily on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, and pretty much anywhere else where you can get podcasts. We're out there and doing a draft prospect every single day. Today is June 4th, 2025. I just dropped an episode today on Adu Thero from Arkansas. Tomorrow, we'll be dropping an episode on Obina Anochili Killen, who's from Marshall. Very intriguing type of dude, one of the leading shot blockers in NCAA. Super sleeper for sure. So check us out every day. I try and do like a 3-player block every time too. Like this most recent one was what I call defensive weirdos. It was Colin Murray Boyles, Adu Thero, and Obina Anochili Killen, because all three of these guys, like, it's clear defense is their calling card, but the offense is like,
Yep. Steve, you're a sicko, and I missed that about you. It is so good to see you. Excited to dive deep and talk about this draft and really get your perspective because I'm going to be honest with you, Steve. This is the least I've prepared for a draft since the time I've started covering basketball. And that's because I had to cover a playoff run, which is something I never really had to do before. So obviously that is a amazing problem to have. I think fans would rather talk about a playoff run than they would, hoping that the ping pong balls bounce your way, so to speak. So, Steve, before we get into the draft, we obviously, you're a Pistons fan as well. You and we've talked quite a bit about the team, and ever since we've known each other, it's really started with those 2 seasons back to back where they broke the record twice in a row for the franchise worst record. So seeing this season and the way that it played out, seeing how some of the young players played, seeing how a guy like Ron Holland thrived in his rookie season and was able to be a mainstay in their playoff rotation. What was just your takeaway from how this season went? And what do you think about, just like how they performed overall in the playoffs? What excites you about the Pistons going forward?
Number one, Cade Parker Cunningham. I mean, it's clear
Yep.
he's the superstar already in MVP talks. You can only see him get better. I mean, if he gets better at the rim or if he gets better from 3-point range, then we're talking like close to 30-point per game scorer for sure. And if he, especially for me, I kind of want to emphasize the rim pressure more than the 3-point shot, because the rim pressure will bring more free throws. And then you're definitely in like 30-point per game type of territory, along with being
Yep.
almost a 10 assist guy, top 5 in assists, which is what I've been predicting the last 2 seasons, thinking he's going to make that jump because it was just clear as day there. And even in the playoffs on defense, like go look up Cade's defensive numbers. He was really good. My draft grade on Cade and my comparison, normally I try and do like a 1-to-1 comparison with guys, and Cade's one of the rare exceptions where I didn't do that because he had so many skills. And I said he was going to be Devin Booker on offense and Jason Tatum on defense. We hadn't really seen the Tatum stuff because at Oklahoma State, he was like the weak side rim protector, kind of played power forward on defense and direct traffic and stuff. But in the playoffs, we definitely saw that. He had so many blocks. He really buckled in the fourth quarter and did some really good defensive work. And then you couple in Asar and all the other guys that chipped in on defense. So I really like all of Cade's, abilities. And it's just like he's just scratching the surface too. And then after that, as Asar, like I had an episode of Asar as our number two because I really do think that Asar ends up being the second most impactful player out of the core that's here. Again, my draft grade on him was Andre Iguodala, which I continue to see more and more. Where it's like give
Yeah.
him more usage, give him more on ball role. You see the passing, you see the defense. Who
Give me
cares about the jumper?
Iguodala.
Yeah, and who cares about the jumper at this point? I mean, I was hoping it would come around, but just how much it was de-emphasized this year, how much he didn't want to take it. It's like he still made such an impact, especially on defense, that it's like you can see clear as day he's such an impact player.
It is so rare, not only in basketball as a whole, but especially in the modern NBA, to still have a positive impact on the court if you're a wing that can't shoot the three. Like almost like the knock that you know that at least that I thought going into the playoffs was, all right, well, how are you going to really be able to keep him on the court when he's not going to be able to space the floor? How does he, how does he apply pressure in the offensive end? It's like, oh yeah, because he's a demon freak athlete that has an underrated handle and the ability to create his own, opportunities at the basket. He's an underrated playmaker. He's someone who showcased a lot of his skills, and I think it's, kind of inarguable that he was the second most impactful player on the team this season, especially when you just look at the record before versus after Asar Thompson came back from the blood clot stuff. And I think that's something that I just found really impressive about Asar. Is obviously it took a little bit for him to get his legs under him, to get his bearings back, to, like the guy had to go almost an entire calendar year without playing organized basketball. Like this wasn't a insignificant situation. This was a, pretty significant like blood clot circumstance. So for him to not only come in and be as productive as he was at that level in under 30 minutes a game throughout the entire season, but also the fact that he can now go into this summer, work on his game in a gym, play in pickup games, work with Fred Vinson and the shooting staff for a full summer. Like that's the thing that's terrifying about Asar. And to me, like obviously him and Amen are different players. The way that they play the game, the way that they play the game. Amen's more of a playmaking guard, like almost kind of like the point wing for the Rockets, whereas Asar's kind of more complimentary as far as his offensive game. But I think as far as how they're viewed, like perception wise, if Asar has a productive summer and comes in and is the guy that we think he could be next season, I don't think he's as far off from Amen as people think he is.
Yeah, agreed too. And again, it's more of like an off ball type of impact because he's a really good cutter. He's another lob threat for
Yep.
Cade, which I think is something that wasn't quite utilized as much. Really, it depends on the team around him. I don't think this young core operated under ideal circumstances. Beasley obviously was tremendous. Fine. I just wish they'd assign him to a longer term deal because now they do face a real threat of losing him in the offseason. I hope the whole like trade deadline thing was an actual handshake deal of like, hey, this is what we're going to sign you for coming back. But imagine if Tobias, this is where I hate dissing on Tobias. It's not really a diss, but he's still not the ideal player you want around a Duran, around an Asar, around a Cade, around an Ivy. You need a stretch four. Like there's those reports now of Nas Reed and Miles Turner. It's like, gee, I wonder why. Because if you have another guy out there who can just bomb threes at a high rate, especially for somebody like Asar, then it's like, how are you going to guard that guy when the big men are shooting that well?
Yeah. I think Tobias, like his role on this Pistons team almost like reminds me of how Al Horford was utilized in Boston, to where he's a guy who, comes in and does a lot of the effort stuff that you need him to, fills a lot of different roles, and plugs holes wherever are needed. He wasn't always the most consistent offensive player, but his shot got better as the season went on. And a lot of times in key wins, it seemed like he was making big plays whenever the team required them. And then also the culture aspect of kind of everything that he brought, and JB multiple times referred to him as an extension of the coaching staff on the floor. So I think that it is objectively true that in order for this team to take that next step, they need to have a more dynamic stretch option alongside a Duran, and I think that's why those Naz Reid, that Naz Reid fit makes a lot of sense. I think Miles Turner, now that especially being on a team that went to the finals and the Pacers are making it known that they're willing to pay the luxury tax. I don't think the Pacers have a reason to lie about that. And I think they have all the reasons to keep that roster together. So to me, it would either be a Naz Reid or it would be some form of trade in some fashion. And that's why it's going to be fascinating to see how how this offseason develops. And the interesting reporting is that a bulk of this is probably going to happen, like all of the moves and transactions are going to happen the week of and during the draft, because a lot of it revolves around draft compensation. People want to be able to have that control going into draft night so that they can kind of pick off momentum off of that. So I'm not saying I'm expecting the Pistons to go make a blockbuster trade, but they could be a team that helps facilitates a Kevin Durant deal or a Giannis deal. They could be a team that's involved in those discussions to try and add ammunition to their team. And who knows, there could be these ramification moves or reactionary moves to these blockbuster deals, because if you look at the Eastern Conference and the Jason Tatum injury, the stuff that's happening in Milwaukee, there's a real balance of power shift. And no disrespect to Indiana, but I think if you're an executive like Trajan Langdon, you look at Indiana being in the finals, you're like, well, shoot, man, if we make some right moves, why can't we be deep in the playoffs, especially next season?
Yeah, I mean, the reports on Miles and Nas Reid to me scream trade, because the only way you even get that out there and know you can do it is by trading. They don't have the cap space flat out to sign either guy. There, they'd have to
It'd have
move
to be a
Tobias.
sign and trade. Yeah.
Yeah, the Tobias contract would be the most logical, and then I hate to say it, but Duran or Stu are probably the other things that get attached there, because if you're sending those guys out, or if you're sending Turner or Nas here, then it's like they probably want a center back, right? And honestly, it would lean more towards Duran if I'm them, because Stu and Tobias make a combined 41 million, and both teams I
Mhm.
think are over the second apron, so they can't take on that kind of money without sending back the exact same amount. So it's interesting. I don't know if that's going to be the case. It's just when I was thinking about the number one, the cap space is like they don't have that money to sign them just right out in the open market unless they trade away somebody. And then if they do have to trade the money to match the big contract, like Tobias, and something else has to be attached, is the most likely scenario. And again, I hate it that it's Tobias. I thought he was the MVP of that playoff series, going back to that Starrcade, but really like the
Yeah.
defense that Tobias put on Cat and just clamped him down. And the games where they didn't do that is where they really struggled. I mean, I don't think anybody would have predicted that. And then he shot something like 44.5% from three. I mean, anytime they got in a slump, Tobias got him out of it when Cade wasn't out there. So, yeah, but it's just like he's 32 years old. He only has one more year left on his deal. Objectively, you can't invest in that guy long term.
Yeah, I think it goes without saying that he more than likely is a they made that contract the way it was so that it would be movable in the future if it was necessary. And I don't think Detroit would necessarily rule it out if they had the opportunity to sign Tobias on a more team friendly deal as he's kind of winding down into the heydays of his career, going more into like a six-man role or like a second unit or, like kind of like a fill-in starter during the regular season. Again, almost just kind of how Al Orford is used in Boston. I just think that's a very similar role just because of their veteran leadership, but also just their versatility with what they can bring on the court. They're smart guys, and they still find ways to be effective at their age. So Tobias not being super old, but I mean, he's played like 14 years in the league. Next year will be year 15. That that is a real wear and tear when you're going into the over 1,000 games played mark in your NBA career. So,
Yeah, and also, I mean, the core of this team, the most oldest guy is what, like 25. Like, it's just a mismatch.
yeah, yeah. So That's why to me again, like if you are to make that move, it has to be for someone that you know for a fact elevates your team now, but going forward. And I do think that a Nas Reed type move would be, something that makes a lot of sense. But I
Agreed.
yeah, he's one of the best free agents on the market this summer. I'd argue probably the best. I mean, technically LeBron could be a free agent this summer. He's staying in LA. James Harden, he's going to be a free agent, I think, but all words are that he's going to stay with the Clippers because I mean, what incentive do the Clippers have to blow it up? All their picks go to Oklahoma City. So, for them, it's like honestly, we had a pretty competitive season. He was decent for us. Screw it. So, yeah, I think overall the Pistons are in a position to be real players this offseason. But as you mentioned at the top of the show, like this Pistons team has predominantly been built through the draft. And Trajan Langdon was really only able to add one young core piece of his own to this group, which was, a Ron Holland. I do kind of want to hear your overall scouting report on Ron, just after year one, like where you had him, in the like where you had his evaluation going into last year's draft versus how he finished now. To me, something I kind of thought about, at the time that it was like a interesting coincidence, but in reality, I think made Ron a perfect fit with Detroit is he was the only player in that class other than his teammate Bazelis who went to Chicago. Um, like they had a really bad season with the Ignite where they lost. Like they were the only team in basketball that had as bad of a losing streak as the Pistons did. So for him to come into the league and have that same fire of I'm not losing that many games again as the Pistons did, I think that was like a real it was kind of like a perfect pairing in that sense of there was a real, like genuine motivation and bad taste in their mouth to turn things around and to play hard each and every night. And I think that's what we saw at Ron Holland this season.
Yeah, and kudos to Trajan too for taking the guy number 5 and then realizing like this is maybe the eighth man, ninth man. I'm not going to just throw him out there with everybody else, even though he's a high pick. We have a plan for him where we want him to be in
Yep.
the second unit, kind of like the backup small forward, power forward. We'll give him some usage and stuff. My report on him last year was crash. He reminds me so much of Gerald Wallace because number one, he gets to the free throw line whether he has the ball or not. He's an attacker and he's just a hound on defense, and he's a big mismatch on the wing with like 6'8" size, bigger wingspan, and the athleticism to like keep up with point guards. I was actually kind of disappointed that they didn't throw him and Asar out there together with like Beasley, Tobias, Cade, and one of the centers in the playoff series. Because I was like, what do you have to lose? Sure, maybe he like gets 5 fouls in like 5 minutes, but what do you have to lose at that point, right? And that's a lineup that in a few years, if one of Asar or Ron is what my draft co-host, shout out Jam Hines, he calls a capable shooter. I think something between like 30 to 33%. Like Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart might be the best example of what we would call a capable shooter, where you look at it and
Yeah.
you're like, those percentages are bad, but then you watch the game and you're like, oh man, he gets on a hot streak, or teams are like, we can't leave him unguarded because he hits enough of them. And I do kind of lean that way
Yep.
more towards Ron Holland. That was the trade excuse me, Andy, shout out Data Driven Piston Fan, my Piston co-host on our weekly Piston pod. That was the trade that Andy and I really felt like Trajan missed out on, was getting Marcus Smart. We would have preferred that over getting Dennis Schroeder because we thought number one, Marcus Smart's defense and attitude like matched exactly what this team needed. And they got a first round pick. The Wizards got an extra first round pick out of it. And Marcus Smart played pretty good for the Wizards. I don't know if that would have been the same thing here, but especially for Ron Holland and an Asar, like that's the exact kind of teammate they need. It is somebody that comes in like that. That's like, yo, man, I don't care what percentage you're shooting. This is why I do it. This is how I do it. And this is how it benefits the team overall. And I do think Ron has more of that in him. You can tell Asar is, I don't know if afraid is the right word, but he turns down so many open threes where Ron, he turns down maybe like 30% of them, but he doesn't care. He'll let them fly because he knows like if I shoot this, it's going to make the defense guard me. differently.
Yeah.
What it's really going to come down to shooters. Let's not forget the other guy in the draft that Trajan added last year was Bobby Klintman. If Bobby Klintman plays anywhere close to what he did in the summer league, that's a huge benefit having that kind of a floor spacer from I
Or if he
think he's
even
more a
plays
power
at
forward,
all.
small forward kind of thing. Yeah, exactly. But I think again with both Asar and Ron, probably a little bit with Ron more in particular, like the jump shot and getting another it's hard to get another Beasley, 300 threes. Not many guys in the NBA have ever done that. But it's having other teammates that take the spacing pressure off him because I think he can develop a little bit more of an overall game, and as long as they don't overtax him and they let him come along slowly, like he'll be good. Tari Eason's another name that I thought about with Ron because he's the same thing. He's not like the most dependable shooter, but he's capable, and his defensive activity and his ability to yam it and get in there and cause havoc and get to the rim on offense while still shooting enough threes and making enough of them, it makes him a huge impact player for Houston.
Yeah. I I think I definitely I like the Marcus Smart shout in the sense of I think he actually went to Washington, especially with the word that was out on him, just kind of with his health and just kind of like how he didn't really add much on the court in Memphis. To be able to go into Washington and be like a veteran role like leader and to not like use that as like a opportunity to just kind of slouch. Like I think he did use the opportunity well. I think where Schroeder made more sense is I think he added more of the offense, like kind of the offensive creation that was missing from Jaden Ivey in the lineup, and there was more of a similar play. I think like it's not really that much of a gap if you look at if you look at Smart and Schroeder's numbers and averages from the season. I just think the other thing as well is just the financial piece to where Schroeder was a $13 million expiring contract where if it doesn't go well, you can get out of it without any hassle whatsoever. Whereas Marcus Smart, he's owed $21 million next season and would be burning a significant, chunk of your cap. So that would be the only thing for me. Like if the salary issues weren't a thing, I would agree. Like with the acquisition, I just questioned if that, just the contract to me is where I just go, oh, I don't know if I love that money for 32-year-old Marcus Smart.
Yeah, the only part of it is you get like another draft pick with it, so it kind of cancels that out. But yeah, if
That's
you have a
that's fair.
yeah, if you have a plan in place, and now if that is true, like the Nas Reed and Miles Turner, then yeah, obviously, like don't do anything to jeopardize the ability to have that kind of cap space. But Andy and I have said often, so often, of like we don't care about cap space anymore. We lived through all those years of Troy Weaver. We don't want to hear the words flexibility ever again.
Yeah, no, I get that, but there is, especially with the complexities of these tax aprons, it is a very real thing that, if you put yourself in a compromising position, you look at teams like Minnesota, who like especially like Minnesota where they have a really young guy in Anthony Edwards, but they're going to probably have to take some gap years in the middle or at the beginning of his prime because they're not going to have enough to go out and like field like that competitive of a team. Like it was really a miracle that they got this far this year. Now the West is going to be even crazier going into the following years. And I think part of like if you look at this finals matchup, part of what's like kind of amazing about it is neither of these teams are paying the tax. Like they're both like,
Yet,
they're both under that salary floor, and all the second apron teams were essentially eliminated by like the second round. Really, like Minnesota was like the only team in there, and I don't know. I think they were like bordering. They got out of the apron, I think, by making the Randall and Cat deal. But yeah, I mean, just it just shows that like if you are Detroit, like if you are to make the argument of like find your player through the draft, you look at Indiana and you look at Oklahoma City, even Oklahoma City, where everyone was going, hey, cash in your chips, go get a superstar, put alongside Shea. Well, they did put superstars or all-star caliber players next to Shea, but they did it through the draft, and now they still have their freaking war chest going forward.
Yeah, and a little bit to your point too, both those teams, like the time is now. I don't know if they'll go into panic mode if they don't win the finals, but like Indiana has 197 or 167 million, excuse me, on the books next year, and they
Yep.
still haven't signed Miles Turner. I mean, like realistically, Miles should be making like 40 million per season. So they're looking at luxury tax if they keep everybody, unless they can somehow manage to unload like TJ McConnell and a couple other contracts. And then OKC, Chet and Jalen J Dub Williams are both due contracts at the same time, and they're probably both going to get maxed. And then at that point, it's like no wonder they kept the war chest, because that's how they're going to reload.
Yeah, exactly. They're gonna have to lose guys like, like Alex Caruso. They're gonna have to lose, like a lot of key role players, but like a Lou Dort, but that's where they're gonna have to fill in via those draft picks. And it helps when for Oklahoma City, like what Sam Presti's so incredible at is identifying guys that are perfect for their scheme, perfect for their culture, but like they're all guys who have length, who can pass, and who can defend like hell. And it's
And
almost
then
kind of
there's
like when
Isaiah
you watch.
Joe. Sorry, Isaiah Joe.
Yeah, well, you can't win them all. But but
Amazing
but
shooter, but yeah.
like Oklahoma City, like it kind of reminds me of like when you're watching like the NFL draft and then like you see who the Eagles get and you go, how in the hell did the Eagles walk out with Jalen Carter? Like that's what it's like watching the Thunder in the draft. So yeah, I think that just speaks to Sam Presti and who he is as a general manager. But shifting fully into the draft and just kind of previewing what it would look like even for the Pistons to like move into look for someone. I think it starts with what is this draft, because there's been a lot of the conversation about it has evolved. I think it's pretty fair to say that this is similar to a Victor draft where it is a consensus, signed, sealed, delivered. The number one pick was decided lottery night. I think from to me, at least from what I've heard, is the fun of the fascination of this draft really starts at 3, but it could also start with 2 if San Antonio decides to push their chips in and to go and get someone alongside Victor. If say I don't know, Giannis Antetokounmpo, if Milwaukee covets that pick, which I'm not sure if you've heard, Steve, Milwaukee's apparently been talking to lottery players.
Yeah, I mean, Giannis to San Antonio, I feel like that should be a done deal. San Antonio has the rookie of the year and Stephon Castle.
Yeah.
They have a Dylan Harper who can fit next to almost just about anybody. He's like 6'6", 214, I think is what they list him at. I mean, he's one of the best guys at getting to the rim and just generating looks in the paint and at the rim and finishing them and getting free throws. Good catch and shoot guy too. Really, his struggles from shooting come like off the dribble. He hasn't had a real good dribble game yet, which is a problem if he's going to be a point guard. But when you put him next to a Stephon Castle, not so much of a problem anymore. And I mean, he's the clear cut number 2 as well. There's still people that would argue for Ace Bailey. I love Ace Bailey, but I still wouldn't argue for him number 2 just because I don't think he has the on ball juice and creation and potential that Dylan does. And then Ace Bailey at number 3. I would probably say 90 to 95% of draft experts still have Ace at number 3, just because you think like Michael Porter Jr. or Brandon Miller. Brandon Miller is my comp for him. I haven't done that episode yet, so spoiler alert there, because I
Hmm.
do think he does have similar background to Brandon Miller of like he falls in love with the mid range too much. Like he can over dribble and kind of get himself into trouble. But the main thing, the difference between Ace Bailey and like MPJ and Brandon Miller is he's a real good rebounder and he's a really good defender. He was Rutgers leading
Mm-hmm.
rebounder, like was in the conversation for leading shot blocker. I can't remember if he finished as their leading shot blocker, but he was at least second leading shot blocker. I mean, he still has the young guy lapses of like losing people off ball, but I don't remember MPJ, or I mean MPJ was hurt, so it's kind of unfair. But definitely with Brandon Miller, there was not that kind of defensive chops with him. And going in the year, Ace Bailey was compared to Paul George off and on, and most people don't like to throw that comp out. I don't think it's quite that level still because PG is a ridiculous athlete, but that just tells you the level. After that, I mean, there's really two drop offs in this draft. It starts at three. After three, I mean, there's guys in contention for that number four, probably like 10 spot. Casper Siakachonis, the big point guard from Illinois, Trey Johnson, combo scoring guard, can play the wing and play both guard spots from Texas. VJ Edgecombe, fantastic two-way athlete, really good shooter, really good defender, can guard 1 through 3 from Baylor. Con Knipple, big country strong white guy and good shooter, compares pretty favorably to like Desmond Bain, but
Mhm.
he looks slow, but also all the defensive numbers and like when you watched him on tape, like he shut guys down at times. Derek Queen, everybody has made the Alperen Şengün comparison. I mean, I'm not going to go away from that. This is pretty much who Derek Queen is. If anybody saw the tournament, I bet Maryland was probably one of the surprise teams. They didn't realize how good Derek Queen is. Sucks on defense, but oh my goodness, he's definitely an impact player on offense. Liam
Mhm.
McNeely, who I still have in the top 10 from UConn, combo guy at both forward spots, some unlocked potential, dealt with a high ankle sprain. And then at 10 is probably Kaman Malawach, super tall, like 7'1", 7'2" center from Duke, who can block shots, who might have some shooting potential from there, from South Sudan, kind of a little bit of a late bloomer. And then I think it probably is like 11 is where the next drop off starts. And you could argue for almost anybody. Give you ideas. Like I have a Thero after redoing his episode. I'm at 35. I wouldn't be surprised if he like sneaks into the end of the lottery. Will Riley from Illinois. I've heard like people love him. I've heard people be like he's undrafted. Noah Penda, who's an international guy, power forward, small forward, can play kind of center from Le Mans. Um, Another guy, like a lot of people like him as first round. I was just listening to Rafael Barlow and Locked On Big Board, and he's like, I don't see him as a first rounder. That just gives you an idea of the range of guys in there. And somebody who I'm kind of down on, Jeremiah Fears, the point guard out of Oklahoma. Both the Barlow brothers, James and Raphael, have him in like their top five, top six. Um,
Mhm.
so, I mean, there's just a real swing after the top 10 for sure, for sure. And after pick number three, a little bit less of a swing. I think there's still like 6 to 7 names that will probably come off the board after number three that everybody would agree with. They might not agree with the order, but definitely
Mhm.
at pick 11 is where it starts to be like,
Yeah, it sounds like this isn't a situation like last year's draft where people are talking super down on the talent of the prospects. But it also doesn't sound like it's the depth of the 2023 draft of the amount of talent. One thing that the Trajan Langdon said in his postseason press conference, in a narrative that's really picking up a lot of traction, is the new NIL reality that we are in terms of the draft. Especially, you see a lot of players who are in a position where they might not be a lottery pick. They might not be a top 15 pick, top 20 pick in the draft, or even, if they're not top 10. If you're a college player who still has years of eligibility remaining, you're you're a decent chance, you have a decent chance at least that you're going to be getting paid more now to stay in college than if you were to, come into the league. And, I'm not sure if you saw the reports of how much Cooper Flag made in NIL. I think that, to me, I don't know if that number is truly that high. I have a hard time believing it's that high for 1 year, but I would bet you it's not very far off. It sounds like Cooper Flag, I would wager, made over $10 million in his year at Duke. If you're one of these players where you're not going to be a lottery pick and you do feel like you could reach that level, especially with the financial security that comes now with staying in college, it seems like that is going to affect the depth, at least in the short term, for the draft. Do you think that is a case, Steve? Do you think there is some truth to that?
oh yeah, absolutely. Two guys in particular who I was high on, and I've heard people be high on for one of them for the last 2 years, and one of them this year since he's a freshman. Yasiel Lindenborg, you're wearing your Go Blue Michigan. That's where he ended up going back to Michigan. The rumor is he's making somewhere between like 5 to 8 million here at Michigan, which is really hard to turn down. And the other one is Alabama's LeBaron Philon, that one's the really surprising one because he's somebody that, like, realistically, you could have seen him sneak into the end of the lottery. Realistically, he's just like a first round pick for sure. But it's Alabama. We know how much money they throw at football players. So I don't know if it's the same for the basketball program, but he's another
Yep.
guy that, like, everybody cleared out. Grant Nelson's gone. Mark Sneers is gone. Like, they're going to give him the keys to the offense and let him run with whoever else they're recruiting there and whoever else is coming in. He already knows the system and all that stuff. All he has to do is just like improve on his numbers even a little bit, and boom. And if he comes and improves significantly or leads Alabama on a run, then there's no reason to think he can't be a top 10 pick. I do think, though, just to get on my soapbox a little bit, if anybody, and I'm going to do an episode with Jam when we do our next draft pod together about this, because I looked at the top 100 um, transfer portal signings from last season, like a couple weeks ago, because all these transfers kind of irked me, only because I think a lot of them are being enticed by money, but then they go somewhere and they don't improve, or they hurt their ability to get drafted. To
Yeah.
give you an example, Cade Tyson from Belmont, he was like a huge guy that everybody was trying to get, the 6'7" wing, good shooter, produced really well at Belmont, was like their leading scorer. Michigan, Dusty May was in the running for him, but then he ended up signing at North Carolina. He was like their eighth man or something, just didn't end up playing at all. Houston Milletta guy I really like, who was over at Pepperdine, really good shooter, did more off ball stuff, went over to Alabama, played 6 games. He got hurt. I don't know if they ended up making him lose his redshirt year, but that was like a rumor that might have happened there along the way. Chris Youngblood was another guy. I think he went to Alabama, if I remember correctly. Um,
Mhm.
and another dude that like was really good at South Florida, I believe is where he was, and then he was just lost in the shuffle there at Alabama. This is where it's odd. Like, I love Yasiel going to Michigan, but I think that was a mistake. He's going to be 24 years old next year. How many 24-year-olds get drafted in the first round, right? But the money, it's just, it's far be it from me, right? If I had that opportunity, that money, I don't think I would turn it down either. Something's got to give, though. I think. I think agencies, with what we're seeing with what's his name, Nico Iamaleava, who went from Tennessee to UCLA, the quarterback,
Yes.
and him trying to like renegotiate. And part of it was like, well, I got us to the playoff. Like, I should see some of that playoff money and stuff. I think that might change it along the way. In terms of the talent pool, though, I think it might thin it out a little bit year by year. Because again, this year, the guys that returned, there were probably those two, Yasiel and LeBaron, that for real, if you ask most draft experts, were like, I didn't realize, I didn't think that would happen. And everybody else was like, sure, like, yeah, go back. You don't have a guarantee. So I think the idea of like, it's thinning out the talent pool is a little bit overblown, but I do
Yeah.
think it's going to like sway it for anybody that's up at a Power Five school.
Yeah. There's still there's still a real benefit of getting into the league when you can. And there's also the argument to be made that if you go into the league and thrive, you're a year closer to getting your big deal in the NBA versus if you're to just stall out in college. And I think to your point, listen, the college athletics as a whole, the new system of NIL and the transfer portal, it's great that these players are in a position and to have the opportunity to have these payments to be paid, for their work and what they're worth and what they're bringing to these universities. But in the same light, there needs to be some form of regulation, some form of system to where we're not having these where literally it's right after Michigan State's eliminated from the tournament and they have to start recruiting for their next season in the locker room, like, right
Yeah,
away. Like,
wasn't
you have to be
was
doing
it
it
them that
while
like
you're preparing for the tournament.
was it them that somebody like in the immediate, I forget what team it was, but like immediately when they left, the one of the players was like, all right guys, I'm going here, signing this NIL deal elsewhere. It's like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that was Michigan State or if it was another school, but it's happening too much, and it's an unfortunate reality that these kids are, being put in that position, but at the same time, like there is like you said, like there has to be the ability for these players to develop and to be coached, because a lot of times players are leaving because either they're getting an opportunity for playing time or they're getting an opportunity in terms of NIL compensation. And that's what it comes down to. If the coach isn't paying you the way that you want or playing you the way that you want, you can just dip up and leave whenever you want. And that's just not a sustainable system. Not for, not for fan engagement, not for, these players. And it's definitely not for these coaches. We've seen multiple legends of college basketball just go, no, I can't do this. I'm out. And like we've lost some of the most iconic coaches in college basketball because this system is just overwhelming to them. I mean, Nick Saban retired for that reason from Alabama.
Well, I think Nick Saban retired because now everybody else gets to do it. It doesn't just get to be him anymore.
Yeah,
But
that's fair. That's fair.
but if the two things is like, if any draft prospect ever hears or takes my advice for whatever reason, number one, what is your ultimate goal? If your ultimate goal is to get to the NBA, then go when the iron's hot. Like, don't look at this deal. I'll give you two examples. Tomorrow, again, I'm releasing the Obina Anochili Killen episode. He was in the research I did. He said I had offers to go elsewhere from Marshall, but I chose to stay because of like the program, the system, and I know here I'm wanted, and I know here like I can
Mhm.
continue to grow. And he did. And I think if he went elsewhere, I don't think he's getting to be like the number one guy. Definitely not rolling out the carpet. And he's definitely not averaging 3.2 blocks per game. It paid off for him. I don't know if he'll get drafted, but he definitely was able to get to like Portsmouth and get more eyeballs on him because of the season that he had. If he goes elsewhere, he ain't having that season. I was just talking to my mechanic the other day when I went there, and he's a big Boise State fan, and he talked about Ashton Jainty, how like he got all these offers to go elsewhere. And you know how much money Boise State paid him in his final season there?
Probably not much.
$300,000.
Holy cow. That's a
Yeah,
bargain of a
yeah.
lifetime.
And when they asked him about it too, he was like, "I don't want to go anywhere else where like I might be buried, or I don't want to go anywhere else where I'm not like 1000% wanted and featured." And again, that was the absolute right decision for him. Robbed of the Heisman, in my opinion. Sorry, all you Travis Hunter fans, but it just, those are the things to consider along the way. Is like, sure, the money is great, but number one, if your ultimate goal is the NBA, then you got to think about developing who's has your best interest in heart, and especially, please, by all means, follow the breadcrumbs. I'll give you two teams right now. I think Alabama is a terrible transfer destination just because look at all the guys they brought in, and really they only feature like one or two guys. And even Grant Nelson and Mark Sears, not exactly like they helped them to secure draft positioning. And the other one is
Mhm.
Tennessee. I mean, how many Tennessee transfers now from Dalton Connect to Chaz Lanier, even guys like Igor Milicic Jr. Now it's like the transfer guys they bring in, they have a plan for. I clown on Rick Barnes every now and then for like choking in the tournament, but it's clear he's a guy of integrity. Whoever he recruits, he's going to feature, and he's not going to bury, and it's going to clearly improve your stock if you go to Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to just see how that system evolves, and I'm sure it's going to be more of a discussion. I think overall those top prospects who are going to be drafted top 5 no matter no matter when they go, they're just going to go to league no matter what, because again, that just gets them another day closer to their biggest payday that they can get. Whereas, I think for a lot of these, like fringe role players or these guys who aren't ready right away, I think it is a great opportunity for them to kind of have their cake and eat it too, so to speak. But to your point, you have to like the onus is still on the players to maximize that opportunity and on these teams to properly develop and maximize the opportunity to to hang on to these players, in a way that they might not necessarily have been able to before. And again, we did the whole transfer portal system is an absolute crapshoot. We don't have the time to fully dive into that today. But what I am curious about, Steve, is when like you said, after 11, it is like have your pick of who goes where, like that's when it gets a lot more hazy and a lot more variation of projections of what players can be. So to me, looking at the draft order, the Pistons obviously they lost their pick this year finally the first round pick that they had traded to New York finally conveyed and goes over to Minnesota. Listen, I think getting your first playoff win in 17 years, but you don't get your first round pick, I take that deal every day of the week. But the thing is obviously, damn, would be a good opportunity for the Pistons if they had the 17th overall pick to be able to go and get another interesting young piece in this class. So my question to you, Steve, is looking at this order. Like there's obviously a lot of teams like Washington's drafting lower than they would want. Utah's drafting lower than they would want. New Orleans probably the same thing as well. But as you get to the middle of the draft, what would be a place that you think could be a reasonable opportunity to trade up for the Pistons? And like it like and what's a player or like a series of players or a few players that you would personally like to see them pursue? Because in my opinion, if I don't think they're going to be able to trade into the lottery, at least not without paying, some form of more significant price to be able to do so. But if there is a player in the late teens or early 20s that they like and are intrigued by, and say a Miami, a Brooklyn, an Orlando doesn't necessarily want to add more young talent. They want to, do different things, open up flexibility. Could that be a window of opportunity for the Pistons to jump in?
The only issue with me is like, what are they giving up? And unfortunately, I know a lot of Piston fans don't want to hear this. I think Ivy is on the table if that's the idea, because they were still really good without Jaden Ivey. And again, objectively, if you're like, okay, we're still really good without this guy, and like somebody would give us something worthwhile, then maybe. But again, I'm not 100% down with that plan, just because I think like giving up on a guy ahead of schedule before you really have an idea of what he looks like with Cade and how he's ironed out. But realistically, if you're trading for a first round pick, like who else is worth it? Maybe Duran. Again, if you listen to my podcast, I'm not the biggest Duran fan, so I'm not not opposed to that plan. And also, if you are looking at Naz Reid and Miles Turner, then obviously one of Stu or Duran has to go, right? So it's one of those two guys. And Stu is the other guy. Again, I would be really opposed to the Stu one because I think Stu is super impactful on defense. But it's probably one of those three. Like Tobias is older. Who wants a 32-year-old guy making 26 million? All that being said, I think the range starts at 6, because 6 is the Wizards, 7 is the Pelicans,
Okay.
8 is the Nets, 9 is the Raptors, and then 10 is the Rockets. The Rockets probably keep
Yeah.
that one there, though, now that I'm thinking about it. But all those teams you laid out before, the Wizards, the Pelicans, the Raptors, and Brooklyn, like they fell, especially the Wizards and the Pelicans. I imagine they're like, I don't know if we really want this one. I mean, the Pelicans are such a mess too. Sorry, Joe D. And then hiring Troy Weaver. I know he would like some of the guys that are on this Detroit roster. He'd definitely trade that pick for one or two of the guys on the Detroit roster. So I would definitely phone calls there 6 through 9.
Uh-huh.
Because again, all those teams are like, we need a difference maker. And if I had to identify one of them in there, it's probably 9 with the Raptors. Because I'm like, the rest of that team is veteran, right? Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, even Grady Dick is now like a young vet. Like, why do they need another young dude, right? And what are they going to do?
And all inclinations are they're going big fish hunting this summer.
Yeah. I mean, and then they got, what's his face? Brandon Ingram too. So maybe they just use this as like, hey, we'll do a cheap role player for a while at number 9. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. I feel like if they don't, it seems like they don't want to be in the lottery again, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless
I
Masai
don't.
really identifies like, hey, at number 9, we think this guy can take a big swing, and it's probably Kaman Malawach. That would be the only other name there that I'm like, yeah, that's a Masai pick. Super tall dude, super lanky, like he had the biggest wingspan in the draft here. But again, another center when you already have Jakob Pertl, maybe. But Toronto would be the one that I would bet
Yeah.
on. And the player that I've been banging the drum for the Pistons is Rasheer Fleming, who is a power forward, kind of a center, can play anywhere between a 3 and a 5 from St. Joseph's. I mean, all
Cool.
he really does is shoot threes, shoot at the rim, and then be a fantastic defender. Over a block and a steal all season. Worked himself into being like a 39.2% 3-point shooter. Is a legitimate 6'8", 6'9" shoes, and has a 7'5" and a quarter inch wingspan. We talked about like replacing Tobias as the exact kind of guy you want, where you're like, we already have Asar, we already have Cade, we already have Ivy, these guys that we want to take usage on. We don't need another dude that can step up and be the next, offensive guy. This is that kind of dude we need, an elite role player who can shoot threes and be a fantastic defender to supplement guys on both ends of the court.
Yeah, I think a player like that makes a lot of sense. To me, I look at the teams that have multiple first round picks throughout the draft. Teams like Brooklyn, teams like Oklahoma City, like Brooklyn has 3 first round picks. And if you're the Pistons,
Yeah, that was going to be
again,
my next point was like, yeah, Brooklyn, they're not going to use all those picks, right?
no, I don't think so. And I think a lot of these teams are going to want to, like another thing is like, do these teams all want to put another, first round pick contract like on their books? Teams could be looking, to save money. And so if I'm Detroit, I wonder if I can position that number, like that 37th pick and some second round capital to move up into the mid to late teens or the early 20s if there's a guy that they like there. Because if the price is to give up an Ivy or a Duran, I don't know if there's a prospect in that range outside of like the top 5 that I would say I would jump at right now over those guys, especially Ivy with the upside with some of the improvements that we saw this season. I do agree that the team playing as well as they did, even with him going out, is something that, if you're Trajan, you look at and you go, okay, well, that is probably one of the more movable pieces if we did have to make a move, which, listen, I think that's been the case since day one, kind of with Jaden Ivey. So I think, the, I, I don't know if there's a prospect I necessarily would like to be able to go, okay, give up him unless we were to go and get a more proven commodity.
Yeah, I have two for the Ivy move though, and both of them have to fall though. I really don't think one of them I think is super unlikely to fall, and that's VJ Edgecombe. I think VJ Edgecombe is the exact kind
Mm-hmm.
of other guard next to Cade that you want. He's probably a little bit more athletic than Ivy. He's definitely already a better shooter, and he's a point of attack defender. Like that is what he is. He's going to be an elite level defender. He's the best perimeter defender in this draft. Cooper Flag's the best overall defender, but I mean, VJ just can stick with anybody. Go back to high school film when VJ played for Lehigh Lutheran Academy there in Long Island, and they went up against Cooper Flag and Montverde a couple of times. There were a lot of times, probably like 3 or 4 in the 2 games where they played where Cooper drove in on VJ and he just hit a brick wall. And then
So,
it was just like, whoa, this kid is strong. I mean, we all know that kid when we're all like 10 years old and they look like a grown ass man, Um,
yep.
that's VJ. So yeah,
I'm currently on the Ringers draft board, just looking at, kind of like, like their big board where they have
yeah,
guys at, and they have player comps for each guys. I was looking at VJ Edgecombs. My favorite one they have is Contavious Caldwell Pope bitten by a radioactive spider.
yeah. No, I said supercharged Lou Dort, so it's
Yep.
not too far off. But I mean, if Charlotte doesn't draft him at 4, they're the dumbest franchise ever. Just send them back to, just send that team to Seattle instead. Then come on, man, that's just too easy of a fit. The
I
other
was
guy,
gonna say he makes a lot of sense in Charlotte. He seems like a
yeah,
Charles Lee pick. At the very least, he's not getting out of 5. So if you are, I mean, if you're like a Utah, and if the Pistons wanted to trade up there, maybe a trade like a Jaden Ivey would be an intriguing guy because he is like a more proven commodity, but also fits their young timeline. But
yeah.
again,
Utah's
for
just
the
like
Pistons,
so weird to know what they're gonna predict. Like, I guess they're not trading Laurie anymore. I don't know what they're gonna do with
yeah.
John Collins, and this is like, okay.
Right. To me, like if I was Trajan Langdon and I were to trade Jaden Ivey, I don't know if I would do it for another young player. I think I would do it for a more proven veteran, which is kind of my other hesitation because you're just kind of you're trading prospects at that point. You know,
Yeah,
like yeah, like one has more NBA experience than the other and has a little bit more clarity and we know who they are or they aren't. But to me, there's just there is just objectively more risk involved, but there could also
yeah.
be a higher reward. So,
Yeah, the reason why I say VJ and the other guy I'm going to get into here is like VJ does have like Marcus Smart defensive player of the year type of potential. He already fits
mhm,
in with mega athlete defenders that you've built with Asar and Ron. And oh, by the way, he's already a good 3-point shooter, so you don't have to worry about that anyway. And like we laid out with Asar, like we just need other dudes that can supplement him. Well, now we have the point
mhm,
of attack defender, so nobody else has to do that. And now you can unleash Asar elsewhere. You can unleash Ron elsewhere. You don't have to have Cade guard really like any difficult perimeter player. And there's another guy that can make up for anybody at the rim. And I mean, just think of a lineup of like VJ, Cade, Asar, Ron, and Stu. Like that's an elite defensive unit.
yeah, no, for sure. It's definitely an intriguing one. I'm sorry, Steve. Did you say who did you say was your other prospect that you liked there other than Edgecombe?
The most divisive prospect in the 2025 draft class, and that's Trey Johnson out of Texas. I mean, he's a difficult shot taker, but he's also a difficult shot maker. Really advanced mid-range game, but if you look at the mid-range stuff too, he's hitting them like at a high rate. He reminds me a lot of CJ McCollum, except this guy is 6'6", and like there's really not something he can't do on offense. If anybody is going to emerge out of this outside of that top three of like, oh man, that guy ended up being a lot better than we thought, it's probably going to be Trey Johnson just because his game and that Texas team. Like, can you name another player on that Texas team? Probably not. Right.
No.
There was only one other guy in Arthur Kaluma who scored like 10 points per game or more. So VJ, and as a freshman, when you come in, you need to take over a team like that. Jeremiah Fears is the only other guy that was like that too. Of like, well, he all the veterans moved out of the way and he took over. But with Jeremiah, and they had more shooting, they had more scoring, they had more defense. I mean, Trey had to be the number one 3-point shooter. He had to be the number one offensive option. 3-level scorer. He shot pretty well at the rim. I do think there's a lot to like there. And you bring that guy into a Piston team with a Cade Cunningham and Trey isn't. I know that you look at the usage and all that stuff, but he did a lot of stuff of like running off ball, coming off pin downs, coming off screens, and his jumper is really, really good. I also know a little bit more intel on him. There's this story that when he was like a sophomore, junior in high school in the Dallas area, which is where he's from, there were guys doing NBA draft preparations and they were doing just one-on-ones in the gym. So Trey like shuffles in like on his break from, algebra or whatever, cooks
Mhm.
everybody. Like he cooked everybody. Nobody's dropped who the names were that he cooked, but apparently they're no slouches. So I think Trey's just kind of been that guy for a while, super chill guy too. Like I think really the only thing he cares about is basketball. Can rub people the wrong way, but just a quiet kid that like all he cares about is the ball, man. I'm really sold on a Trey Johnson.
Would you say there's kind of like Cam Johnson? I mean, not Cam Johnson, Cam Thomas vibes, like where
But
he
I
can
think
kind of be
he's
like a bucket
more.
getter, kind of microwave scorer, but also can kind of like be almost kind of like a ball dominant or kind of be a deterrent at times.
See, this is where I don't think he's a deterrent and why I gave him the CJ comp as opposed to like the Cam Thomas. I think Cam Thomas needs the
Okay.
ball to generate. Whereas, like, if you think of CJ, he can create on the ball and pass and stuff, but he doesn't necessarily need to be. He can always function with whoever the other guard is.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I just wanted to clarify. Um,
Yeah, and like a 6'6" too with that handle. Think of a 6'6" CJ. That's a really useful player.
yeah. The other angle of this is let's say the Pistons just stay status quo and let's say they just go in and draft at number 37 overall. Now, if they do, what are the chances that they are getting someone that not only could play on the team in any capacity now, but ever? Because I think that's kind of that's kind of the thing with second round picks historically, is just been, it's at that point it is really it is, you are really just kind of throwing stuff at the wall and hoping something sticks. Yeah, I know in years past, having a higher second round pick was kind of viewed as having like an additional first round pick, but I don't know if that's the case in this draft class.
I think that's the case in every draft class. You remember the year that Nikola Jokic was drafted? You know what year that was?
It was I know, I believe it was 2015 because it was during a beef quesarito commercial. So I'm only slightly depressed that I know that little factoid, but you know
No,
what?
that's awesome.
I'm rocking with it. It was either 2014 or 15.
Yeah, it was in again, it was in like a down year, especially it was in that second round that everybody's like, blah. I'm always of the mindset that every second round from 31 to about 42, 45 is super valuable. Go through every single year.
Okay.
You will find guys like Malcolm Brogdon, like Nikola Jokic,
Mhm.
even lesser quote unquote guys like Javon Carter. I think Io DeSunmu went in that range as well. Like there are always guys that contribute, and a lot of starters end up coming out of that area. So I think 37, there's still a very high chance there. It's just who's going to be there at 37? I have no idea. If you look at
Yeah.
Tankathon right now, they have Chaz Lanier. I mean, he's pretty much like copy paste Malik Beasley, pretty much the same size, the same thing. Where like just let him shoot threes to give him the green light, he'll make it there. I have Zeke Mayo at 37 out of Kansas, combo guard guy. He kind of plays like Aaron Holiday, where he does just about everything well from the
Mhm.
guard spot and can play both things. Other guys I've seen at around 37 are like Hugo Gonzalez, who's a overseas prospect, but I mean, he's pretty much ditto repeat for Ron and Asar type of dude, where it's more energy and less shooting and good defense. Some other guys I've seen down there are like Boglo Markovic, who's a very good stretch shooter and a
Mhm.
pretty good offensive creator. Somebody I would love to fall to 37, but I don't think it's going to happen, is Drake Powell, the wing out of North Carolina, very good athlete. He had like his standing vertical was like 3 to 4 inches better than everybody else's, which shows you the level of athlete he is. He's like 6'6", 7 foot wingspan. Played out of position at North Carolina at power forward, but really is more shooting guard, small forward. Very good shooter, very good
I feel
defender.
like it's
Also
almost
can lock in.
impossible to find a freak athlete outside of the 20s.
Yeah,
I feel like once you get
I
to
mean,
the 20s and beyond, like those like insane premier athletes just come off the board, because at that point, like those are kind of the swing prospects if you're at that position.
yeah, he's somebody that if he doesn't go in the top 20, I'll be like, what are people doing? Just because if you dive into the tape too on Drake Powell, he played out of position. He'd be able to play with four other that their top five in minutes. Three of those guys are 6'3" and under, and basically point guards. I don't know what Hubert Davis is doing in North Carolina. That was a bit of a mess. And another sleeper who I haven't seen at 37. Well, I guess I can give you a couple ones. Elijah Martin, who was at Florida this year, really good defender at the guard position, solid shooter, one of the best guard rebounders like ever in college. He played power forward when he was at Florida Atlantic. Peyton Sandford, who's been criminally underrated at Iowa, just another guy that can shoot the three from the three or the four. And another guy that's like that, who I've liked and been on my super sleeper team since the beginning of the year, was Nate Santos from Dayton. Again, 6'7". I think he measured in like 216 at the Portsmouth Invitational Tournament and looks a lot like Torian Prince kind of guy. Like there's still a lot of names there, and one of those guys is going to be available there, and they all project as again solid role players. They're just my main thing with the off season too is like, please, dear God, Trajan Langdon, just select guys in the draft, trade, Trajan. All of them need to shoot threes. No more of these like guys that can't shoot.
Yeah, I think that's something with Trajan that's going to be a priority moving, like moving forward, is just being able to have guys who can shoot, who can space the floor, who can play at high level on defense. I think that's something that, that Trajan has made, made clear that that's something that's important to him. And even if you look at some of the reported players that the Pistons are interested in getting, they all have one thing in common: they can shoot the three. And so it'll be interesting to see, just kind of what direction they choose to take. But I just, no matter what, I think it's important to continue to not overlook the draft, even if the Pistons are no longer in the lottery, because as we said towards the beginning of this show, how did the Pacers and the Thunder get there? Well, yes, they had guys that they traded for or acquired in transactions, like Tyrese and Pascal and even Aaron Nesmith. He was part of the Malcolm Brogdon deal. But Andrew Nemhard was a drafted homegrown talent that's been playing really well. Benedict Mathurin, another solid contributor that they got, through the draft. Like they're essentially their entire depth and so much of their foundation is just built by drafted, developed players through their system. And Oklahoma City is perhaps the greatest collection of drafted talent we've perhaps ever seen. I mean, Sam Presti is like, if he starts winning championships with this Oklahoma City team, I think it has to be an all-time great executive conversations, not just in basketball, but in all of sport. When you look at his ability to identify talent and to acquire MVPs, he's had 4 of them. He's drafted 3 of them. He's developed all 4 of them. And, that's something that's special of itself. But again, also the role players like the Lou Dorts, the other Jalen Williams, who's turned out to be able to space the floor and always plays good minutes for them. Like you could just go down an entire litany of, like, it feels like they have more guys who can play than are allowed to be that are allowed to field an NBA roster.
Yeah, and the other thing with Trajan, that shout out to Scott and Steve in the Slack chat, we talk about this all the time, is like no Piston front office has ever paid attention to the margins of like free agents, the waiver wire, and those things. We hope,
Mm-hmm.
we hope, we hope. Trajan came from New Orleans, where they got Jose Alvarado, undrafted free agent. They got Najee Marshall, undrafted free agent, right? They clearly like put an emphasis on that. I don't know how much Trajan's fingerprints or how much he had to do with that, but it should be a lesson that he takes away, even if he wasn't the one like leading the charge there. Because you just laid it out. There's some undrafted guys, and especially Oklahoma City. Lou Dort was undrafted weirdly. This is another guy that I'm like,
Yeah.
what were they thinking not drafting him? And Isaiah Joe, somebody they picked up off the waiver wire, I believe. Like nobody really kind of believed in him, and then they picked him up and utilized his skill set in that regard. So hopefully it's the same thing with Trajan, where he gets. I mean, if they can get just one Jose Alvarado, one Najee Marshall, that's a major win.
Yeah. And that's a key contributor to being in contention or being in those places, is not only having guys that for a fact are going to contribute, but you also fit really well under like the salary cap, or circumstantially, like, oh, these are guys that we can actually keep on good deals for us going forward. So yeah, it's going to be a fascinating story just to see how things develop, because again, a lot of these moves that are being projected to be made, a lot of it's going to happen during the week of the draft and then during free agency. And so this is going to be like perhaps the biggest week of the Pistons offseason. So it will be fascinating to see how they approach it and just kind of what everything looks like there. Before we go, Steve, there's something that happened in the NBA this week that I just can't get over, and I need to hear your thoughts on. Uh Tom Thibodeau being fired from the New York Knicks after bringing the Knicks to their first conference finals in 25 years. All reporting says that this was a Leon Rose decision backed by ownership. But if you know the New York Knicks, if you pay attention to the way that they do things, anytime this type of decision is made, especially when it doesn't feel like it's a time where it really makes sense, it was made by James Dolan. And my theory is he went away for years because he was playing with his new shiny toy, the Vegas Sphere. And now that the Knicks are fun again and are near contention, he wants to be at the front of the front of the plane again and be given the reins, so to speak, and start making more active decisions. Which, if that's the case, this could spell very bad things for the New York Knicks going forward. I'm not sure what your thoughts are, Steve, but I think it's awfully presumptuous to say that you're going to go get definitively a better coach than the one that just brought you out of the years of irrelevancy and quite frankly, just years of just terrible basketball.
Yeah, it's their best season in 25 years, and then he gets
Yeah.
fired. It makes no sense. It's one of the stupidest moves I've seen in a while. Like apparently Monty Williams and Tibbs have equal value, right? In terms of just like, no, you had our worst season ever. We're gonna fire you and keep paying you. Oh, we had our best season ever. We're gonna fire you and keep paying you. It's just like, what? Again, you just said it. What's the upgrade? What is the upgrade for this? And I know people make this off and on, and I agree with this for the most part. Is like how much of a coaching change makes a difference in the NBA between like contending and not contending. It really comes down to the player personnel you have. Number one, it comes down to health, and number two, it just comes down to like what lucky bounces you get that year, right? I mean, just think to the Raptors playoff run, that one iconic Kawhi shot against Philly. Like, it's a lucky bounce, right? He's in the right place at the right time, prepared for that, and they got the bounce the way it needed to go. So it's just like it doesn't make any sense. Like, how is this going to get you over the hump? If anything, making a coaching change puts you a couple years back, right? What's the last time you can think of a coaching change and they immediately win the finals? It's probably the Pistons, right, with Larry Brown.
I was just about to say it's literally the Larry Brown change. The only other one I can think of is like Mark Jackson to Steve Kerr, but even then that wasn't like immediate. Like that took
Yeah,
time,
like 2 or 3
for that
seasons, I think,
to
right?
yeah. Yeah, it took time. So, yeah, no, it doesn't happen immediately. And I think the other thing as well is you look at Jalen Brunson, who came out and as definitively supported a coach and backed a coach as you possibly could, at the end of the season. And for them to just immediately fire the guy that was his guy that he has known since before he could even form memories of knowing Tom Thibodeau. Like he Tom Thibodeau held him as a baby.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I mean, his
well,
dad
like
is on
that
the
is
coaching staff too, so like that's got to be awkward.
yeah, and also it's like okay, like all right, cool. Is the dad still going to be on the coaching staff? Like if you go out and hire someone this offseason, are you going to say, "Hey, Rick has to be your top assistant? Has to be one of your top guys on your bench?" Like no disrespect to Rick Brunson, but do we really think he's there for his coaching acumen?
Yeah, such a stupid situation that again Dolan continues to find himself in the kings of the East.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if you've heard like some of the names that they're interested in. I mean,
No, I haven't
a couple of
haven't
the
at
names
all.
that I keep yeah, a couple of names I keep hearing floated around. I mean, the one that everyone immediately goes to because he's the guy in the market is Mike Malone. I was listening to Fred Katz of the Athletic talk with someone from Sports Illustrated, and he talked about how Tom Thibodeau was literally mentored by Mike Malone's father. And if there's anyone that coaches the way or coaches as close to Tibbs in the league, it's Mike Malone. So you're essentially just getting a different flavor of Tibbs if you go out and hire him. And the other names that have been floated around are guys that are not even, necessarily available on the market. One is Ime Udoka, which someone for the Athletic for Houston immediately shut that down. I mean, that's just not happening. The other one, which quite frankly is just another like if this is really the direction they go, really is Jason Kidd with the Mavericks. And I know Jason Kidd's gotten them to a finals. I know Jason Kidd has coached a conference finals. I do not think Jason Kidd is definitively an upgrade from Tom Thibodeau. I just don't.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, Tibbs is top 5 coach right now. He's probably like 5. I mean, there's only a couple other guys that like you would definitely throw him away for being like Spo, Pop if he was healthy, Tyronn Lue, and then who else?
Yeah. And if your biggest knock against Tom Thibodeau is the minute stuff, which like, yes, that's a very real thing. And I understand like be needing to have like rotate like a dependable rotation. But on the other hand, if you want a dependable rotation, give them some dependable players to put on that bench. Like
Yeah.
when your best second unit player by a wide margin is Deuce McBride, that's a weak bench. And yes, Mitchell Robinson was a big factor of someone they could bring off the second unit, give them different looks. That wasn't there for the first 65 plus games of the year. That just wasn't even an option for the Knicks. So I just don't see any scenario where they can bring someone in and they just suddenly have this revolutionary offense that 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 explodes in a way that they didn't already do in certain points of the season this last year. And I definitely don't see anyone who can come in and fix the defensive woes of having Cat and Brunson on the court at the same time, especially not someone who's a better defensive mind than Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah. This is where, like, I don't want to diss on player empowerment because I'm pretty much for it, but it does kind of point to that of like when things go awry, GMs are always going to point to the coach and be like, no, they're the problem, not the players that are brought in
Yeah,
who have these inherent flaws that have been exploited on every other team they've been on. It's not that.
yeah. And I have a hard time believing that this is a Leon Rose
Well,
led
to
led
push back
decision
on
because
that, this might be like a Tibbs of like, or not a Tibbs, a Dolan thing of like, hey, it's either you or him. You know what I mean?
yeah, I mean for sure at a certain point self-preservation does come in, but Rose did also sign Tibbs to that extension a year ago. And on top of that, Rose was Tibbs's agent before
Yeah, I mean,
he came
the evidence is
like
just too big. That's Rose's guy, man.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so and again, if you just look at the years and years of history of the New York Knicks and the decisions that they made, and also if you're just compared to decisions they made before before and during Leon Rose, this feels a lot more pre-Leon than it does current Leon. I'm not saying Leon is this is this like inimpeachable like force. Like I actually think there's some real questions about some of the decisions he made this summer of going all in. But I also wonder how much of that is ownership coming and saying, just get the deal done. I don't care what it costs. Cause I mean, the biggest thing that is going to be like the black eye on the report card for Leon Rose is the 5 first round picks you sent to Brooklyn for Mikal Bridges, where yes, Bridges, like the idea of Bridges is about the best player that you can have as a complementary player in your starting lineup, someone who can create his own offense in theory, someone who could be one of the best defensive players in basketball in theory, but it just didn't play out that way for the Knicks this year. And you even have our own, like our guy, James Edwards III, starting to float out there. Like, does he like this role? Is he happy here? And if the Knicks do have to move on from Mikal Bridges, they'll be lucky to get 3 first round picks back based on how he played last year, especially when Luka only goes for 1.
Oh my gosh, don't get me started on that. Stupid Nico Harrison and stupid Rob Pelinka.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's the they can't keep getting away with it meme for
Yeah,
for
it
Rob
totally is.
Pelinka just stumbling into these trades and then Nico Harrison being given the get out of jail free card of a lifetime in the lottery win of all years in the Cooper Flag year.
You know who the most angry fan base is after that draft lottery, right?
I mean, it's got to be Utah or it's got to be Washington, right?
No, it's Dallas. They're like, we can't get rid of him now.
That's a good point. That's true. But also it's like nothing eases the pain of losing a generational prospect quite like stumbling into another potential generational prospect.
Oh, Nico will find a way to mess it up. Don't you worry.
Oh, for sure. And the other thing I clocked, and I'm not sure if you noticed or not, did Cooper Flag seem super excited when Dallas won the lottery?
No, he's a role player now. I mean, if they keep the pick and they keep the roster as is, he's like fourth option, which I think would be fine
Well,
for him, and I think he'll thrive in that. But as the man, number one overall pick, not what you want to go into.
yeah, I mean, it's certainly like as far as being surrounded by other former number one overall picks,
Yeah,
like being able to play with like being able to have a mentor in Kyrie and AD is a great concept. My biggest thing is if you're a Cooper Flag, if you saw what they did to Luka Doncic,
yep,
on the way out and just how
yep.
he was treated this last year, how are you going to feel excited and comfortable about going into that market, into that team, and inherently trusting those decision makers? Like, yeah, this isn't
Yeah,
Luca as far as like the prospect, as far as his conditioning, his defensive ability, all the drawbacks and things that qualms that you had about Luka Doncic. That's not Cooper Flag. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that if you're a Cooper that you're not going to be looking over your shoulder a little bit if things don't go well, because your front office is shown to be erratic, to make illogical decisions, to not necessarily back their word.
yeah. I mean,
So,
any NBA player, any draft player, I imagine they're like, I don't want to be in Dallas now.
mhm. Yeah, that is a legitimate relationship or a legitimate like PR mark that they are going to have to shake for years to come. And listen, it might not be that hard if they start winning games, if they can still flex the no state income tax, all those different things, but I mean that only gets you so far, especially when players can talk about their legacies and like where like that stuff matters a lot more when you're still making hundreds of millions of dollars regardless of where you live. So,
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I'm just sick of talking about Nico. I can't wait for him to make the next dumb decision he's going to do.
oh yeah, same here. I feel for the people of Dallas, but also damn, y'all got real lucky with how that
Yeah,
draft
again
lottery
though,
turned out.
if I'm a Dallas fan, I'm mad because I'm like, we need Nico out of here. 'Cause after all of that, after all the press conferences and all the stupid things he keeps saying, I don't want this guy around.
Right. And assuming the 99% chance reality that the lottery is not rigged and goes exactly the way, that we see it in the, in the video afterwards that's released to the public. If I'm Adam Silver, I'm like, damn it. This is the worst case scenario for all these conspiracy theorists, because that is like the ultimate like rod for them to cling on for the conspiracy theorists. Like that just gets all the wheels turning. Everyone's reaction immediately was fixed, rigged, like fixed. Like it's just to save Dallas from their stupidity.
He ain't helping matters either, too. I just read a tweet today where he was praising Dallas for not tanking, and it's like, dude, like, what are you doing? You spent all this time dissing on tanking, and then after they win the lottery, like, I'm really glad they didn't tank. It's like, okay, come on, man.
My only thing I think he's trying to do there is he's trying to back and try and like convince like actually this change I made in flattening the lottery odds is a great thing. But like in reality, I think he almost like there almost has to be a middle ground between where the odds were in the past and where they are now, because 25% was probably too high for the worst team to get the number one overall pick. And that did create all this imbalance that we saw with tanking. But this 14.5% chance and teams like Utah falling to the sixth overall pick. And now good luck if you're a marketing representative with Utah having to call people about getting season tickets. What the hell do you sell them, Steve? What the hell do you sell them?
Hey, we got Laurie still. We're not trading him.
Hey, Laurie's cool. We got Danny Ainge and his son in the front
Oh my
office now.
gosh.
Things are
Yeah.
getting cooking.
We got nepotism. Come on down.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's probably something the Mormons are pretty comfortable with. So I imagine that's something they're pretty familiar with how that works.
Somebody go ask Vernon Maxwell for his thoughts on this. I would love to hear about it.
I'm sure Dwayne Wade was feeling thrilled about his investment in the Utah Jazz
Oh
after how
my
the
gosh,
lottery went.
I forgot he did that. What was he thinking? Come on, D Wade.
Dude, that poor guy, like investing into the Jazz, like probably thinking he's going to be able to be with Donovan Mitchell for his entire career and, help him with his marketing and all that stuff. And he's gone. And yeah, you have Lori, but good luck finding someone else. So it's, it is a heck of a time to be an NBA fan, Steve. I just that's really all I can say because like I mean obviously we have the finals starting this week. We have the draft just a couple of weeks down the road. We're a month from free agency. We could legitimately 30 days from now be looking at the landscape of the NBA and saying, "Well, that's completely different from where it was even
San
just 2 weeks
Antonio, the
ago."
Twin Towers, it's going to happen.
Yeah, San Antonio has a chance to change everything. Houston, it can make some real noise. There are a lot of teams that have some genuine reasons and ammunition to make some moves. And when those happen, we're going to be talking about it right here on From Half Court. But also, be sure when you're going to check out your draft coverage that you go to Rezball Pod and all of your podcasting platforms on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your pods. Be sure you go and listen to Rezball. Steve, I can't thank you enough, man, for being my draft guy, but also just someone that I've been growing in this podcast space with. Just a great guy, and love talking hoops with you, man. Seriously, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, man, I'm always happy to be here, talk Pistons, talk NBA, talk draft. It's really like the only podcast I go on that's comprehensive. Normally it's like just one of those things, but it's always good to chop it up about everything here. Again, tune into the Rezball pod, like Sean said here. This last 3-player pod. Yesterday was Colin Roy Boyles. Today was Adu Thero. Tomorrow's Abena Anna Chili Killing. Our next 3-player pod will be Ace Bailey, John Tanjay, who I got a little bit of beef with because he actually was committed to New Mexico. I'm from Albuquerque originally and then went to Wisconsin. Better fit for him, but that would have been awesome to have John Tanjay at UNM. And then Peyton Sanford. So definitely tune in for that to hear about shooters and 2 guys potentially in Tanjay and Sanford that will be there for the Pistons at 37. And both guys I think are a good fit.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, Steve, we're gonna have to find some time after the draft for you to come on and evaluate what was done, some of the surprises of the night, and just talk about where they go from there. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of movement happening, so we're gonna need you back to break it down.
Yeah, we'll see Nico take somebody other than Cooper Flag at number 1. That would be pretty hilarious.
Dude, if they trade that pick, I swear that fan base will revolt in levels that I don't know we've seen in a long time. I
I
mean,
hope they trade
it
it for
was
somebody
already bad.
I hope they trade it for somebody like Embiid, who's just like, what are you doing even more?
They trade Cooper Flag for Kevin Durant. Like, guys, we got KD. Ignore the fact that he's 37 or 38. We got Kevin Durant.
And he's on the last year of his deal. It's a great idea.
Yep. And also poor Phoenix. I saw Matt Ishbia's article saying that he wants to be more involved going forward. He wasn't involved enough was
Being
his word.
I will say though, I went to a game there this last season against the Nuggets. I mean, if you haven't seen Jokic in person, go see Jokic in person. By the way, he checked out.
I got to make that happen.
They beat him so bad that Jokic checked out with 1 assist shy of the triple double. So it was pretty funny.
And they asked him like, "Hey, you want to go in?" And he's like, "No, I'm done.
We're ahead by like 40. Get me out of here." But
Night over.
Their experience there is really good in the stadium. Like he did implement things where there's like $2 hot dog, $2 popcorn, $2 drinks. There's like actually affordable things for everybody. So I think he is definitely overzealous, Matt Ishbia, as an owner. But and he also is one of the first that implemented the like forget League Pass. We're going to give you a subscription to our team so that you can just subscribe to that and watch it anywhere. No lockouts, no blackouts. So yeah, overzealous in the roster construction, but in terms of like the fan experience and here in the local community, I think he's done a lot of good.
Yeah. All of the other aspects of being an owner Matt Ishbia is night and day compared to what they've had.
Oh
But
yeah,
when it
Robert
comes
Sarver
to
just chilling on the sidelines with nobody.
but when it comes to building a basketball team, he rivals Robert Sarver. It almost might be worse because he's so willing to spend, and he just puts himself into a point where you can't do anything. You're stuck.
Maybe he can trade for another guy with a no trade clause. That'd be perfect.
Have you heard people say the cat for Kevin Durant trade suggestions?
Oh yeah, I just saw that the other day. Yeah, so I mean, it makes sense due to Devin Booker and Cat's connection, but it would also be pretty hilarious.
If I'm Phoenix, I'd do that deal right away. If I'm New York.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Same.
Yeah. Yeah. But Steve, thank you so much for being here. And thank you to those for listening. Be sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss any of the content that we have coming up. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you guys next time from Half Court.